We're getting well on the Wild Edible World podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael.
And this is Steve. We're coming at you, from one of our favorite little spots. And we are here to give you little forehead kisses, cut your little grilled cheese sandwich in half diagonally, and, just give you some love. This is our episode where we're going to talk about things that we like to do to keep ourselves svelte during the winter season.
Yeah, we're staying cozy with another indoor series episode all about remedies to help us all get through the cold weather and increased illness era. So I think starting off, one thing most people are familiar with is just like a good hearty soup. And we talk a lot. I mean, the whole focus of this podcast is food is medicine. You know, this stuff is nutritional. It's good for you. It's delicious. Most importantly, it's delicious, but it's also medicine, So a good hearty soup goes a really long way because, a lot of the ingredients that we're probably going to hear a couple times throughout this episode, like whenever you make a normal soup stock, or I guess it's not just soup stock, it was bone broth that you mentioned, right?
Bone broth.
Because there's a big difference there, right?
Absolutely. Bone broth is like the Mr. Miyagi of soup stock. It's that 36 hours slow roasted, all the good cartilagey bits from the animal that was gracious enough to grace you with its goods, and it's the coating, nourishing, giving back what you don't get this time of year. So you're not able to go outside. You're not able to get that good sunlight, and there's not as nearly as much of a like vegetable harvest or things of that nature. And eggs right now are freaking outrageous. I don't know if you've seen the prices; they're nuts.
Yeah.
So this is just protein from another source. Bone broth per cup can have as many as like 10 to 12 grams of protein, and that's just in a soup essentially.
Yeah. And bones at your local butcher or your grocery store are going to be very affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to the right place, then yeah, dirt cheap for sure.
So whenever you make like a complete bone broth, it's going to be, like you said, it's like almost jelly. It's gelatinous.
Yeah.
And it's really good for your skin too. So that's one of the things I love is like how good it is for just like it kind of fills a pretty big part of the spectrum.
It really does. Yeah.
Inside and
Skin,
out.
joints, the lining of your stomach to prevent those like histamines from breaking through and making you all freaking stuffed up and gross.
I needed more soup in my life the last couple of weeks. So we're talking about what we typically do.
This is what I do in the winter, man. Just
I should have
soup it
been
up.
drinking more soup.
Souptober to
Souperuary.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we're not going to go further in the year than that.
Yeah, no, that's good. March would be difficult.
Yeah. April's worse.
Yeah.
Superal? Oh, that's it's better.
Bad.
Yeah.
It's not too
Superal.
bad at all.
Yeah. Souptober to Superal. Okay, maybe it's worse again. Anyway, so soup is great. It's really good for you, and it's an easy way to bring a lot of this nourishment that we're kind of missing in the wintertime. So that's what we thought would be a good way to kick off a remedy episode. What I wanted to talk about specifically was just like a plant that I don't think we would really have much space for in a normal plant-focused episode. But it is a really prevalent invasive plant, and it is also a well-known and well-used medicinal plant, and that's mullein. So a lot of people have confusion over sheep's ear, and there's a couple other like common misnomers, but this is one that you're going to find along the side of railroad tracks, like all the time. That's not necessarily where you're going to harvest it, but that's just an example of its pattern of advantageous growing. I find it on the slopes of hills, just about any hill that has a lot of erosion. It's going to set up camp there really easily. And the cool part about mullein is how much of it grows. Have you ever seen mullein before?
Yeah. I was just going to comment on that. When mullein, I've heard it called mullein or candlestick.
Sure.
Because of that, the stalk.
Yeah, because you can. What is it that you like coat, or is it naturally a candlestick, or do you have to coat it?
Oh, I don't know, but it looks similar to a candlestick. That's what I
pretty
always
sure
attributed
empty.
to.
You can. It's like it is actually.
You can make a candle out of it.
No, you coat it with something.
Don't tell me that.
But
I'm gonna go. I'll go look right now.
But the leaves are really good. To get to the point of why it's a medicinal plant, it contains a lot of like mucus releasing components. So people will put it in teas, but a lot of the more mainline folk medicine people will just dry it out completely. It's like really fuzzy and furry looking, and you just dry it out completely, break it up, and roll it up into a cigarette.
A smokable
cigarette, and then you smoke it. And while that does sound kind of counterintuitive to whenever you're wanting to heal your lungs, that's also the most direct way of getting something into the blood system in your lungs. So I haven't used it that way myself, but I have seen tons of anecdotal evidence from all sorts of plant users that have said that it is one of their favorite cough medicines that really just helps clear out their chest or their sinuses. So people will put it into a tea or an herbal vapor. So you can do like a facial steam with it, and that'll really help too.
And there's also records of farmers using it. They'll smoke it for their cattle. So they'll start like a fire and like almost, you know how you smudge sage?
Yeah.
So like that, but for your cattle, and it helps out the livestock as well.
Like it helps the livestock breathe better.
Yeah, I mean,
or is it for like pests and stuff?
Same thing it does for us. I would assume.
Of course. Well, I've never heard of
Isn't that
farmer
cool?
practice. Yeah, that's fun. Cool. Well, and that's really all that I know about mullein. It's however you want to pronounce it.
It's something that when you the plant itself is biennial, so it'll pop up every other year it flowers, but it'll still have leaves no matter what, and then just those flowering years stock up for the next one, and then
and then try to remember to deal with the seed stock responsibly, because there are like thousands and thousands of seeds in the flower stock. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. The seed stock grows to like
it's so cool
2 or 3 feet long. Sometimes like it's huge. Mm-hmm. But that contains a lot of seeds, so just be mindful of how you're dispersing them and try not to be too impactful on your local environment. But also do take advantage of a highly medicinal plant that is also a pretty aggressive colonizer.
And then worst comes to worst, if you can't find it, like right now, if you're listening to it, like, damn, I'd really like to smoke some of that. You can order it.
Yeah.
And, do it that way.
Yeah, there are all sorts of online resources. One of our favorites is forage.market. Yep. We are hoping that they'll be our best friends
Notice
soon.
us.
So, notice us, senpai. But yeah, so we got mullein, and then another pairing, I think, with just kind of like the cold medicine remedy and just focusing on a single ingredient aspect while in our first half is, I think, elderberry. So we've done a whole episode on elderberry and elderflowers. So I highly recommend all of you current listeners, if you haven't listened to the elderberry episode, go back and listen to that, because we do talk a little bit about the antioxidant and the it's like anti-cold.
Yeah,
it's preventative.
Yeah.
It is active. Like it's really kind of like a super berry.
It is. In the case of a remedy episode, this is definitely a star. One of a few, but yeah, this is definitely a heavy hitter. Go listen to that episode, because we're not going to get super into the deets because we already did it.
We already talked about it. So this is a solid plug for our past selves.
Shout out us from the past.
But you can make gummies, you can make syrup, you can freeze it into like ice cubes and put it in drinks.
I make Jello.
A Jello, of course. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Jello or elderberry Jello sweetened with raw honey.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So I guess, we have one more thing to talk about in the single ingredient aspect, and that's really important, and that's raw honey.
Yes.
So, and I guess most specifically, we wanted to emphasize local raw honey, local to
Yeah.
you, supporting your local bee farmers, and also getting a bunch of flora and bacteria from your local environment, because that's what's really important about the raw aspect of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Your local honey is gonna be full of the pollen and stuff that it's gonna be made from the pollen and stuff that you're breathing in. That's causing your sinuses and allergies to go crazy. So that's the stuff you want to calm it down. I don't know how it works. Let's ask some bees.
Well, and I'm going out on a limb here. I imagine it works in the same way vaccines technically do, where it's introducing kind of a dormant form for your immune system to recognize it, or it's delivering it to your body in a way that's like, oh, this is friend, not foe, and it makes you less inflamed.
Sure.
But I'm not. What we were going to say, we're not
doctors. That is an important point we wanted to make in this episode. If you have any underlying conditions, medical conditions, before you put any of this stuff in your body, except for the bone broth, I think you're pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
Then definitely research it beforehand. I mean, it's just in case.
Also, I guess if we're making disclaimers, raw honey is not good for babies.
Yeah. So don't coat your babies in raw honey, nor
or feed them
it. Feed it to them. Yeah, don't feed it to them. But yeah, raw honey.
Raw honey is great. So it's really, really good for you. It's packed with nutrients. It's really soothing. It's good for your skin. So you can do like a sugar. It's really kind of one of these like miracle substances. It doesn't go bad. I think that's really well known about it. Doesn't go bad. And you can ferment it as well. If you introduce a little bit of moisture, depending on what it is, you can also get a little bit of that extra fermentation action going on there.
Pro tip for the raw honey, it can be damaged by temperatures that are too hot. So if you're making tea with honey, you don't want to use boiling water. You want to use just below that. So maybe once you pour it over the leaves or whatever you're using, give it a few seconds to kind of temper, and then you can add your honey in. That way you're not damaging any of that good stuff that you want from it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it is pretty temperature sensitive. That's the point of it being raw, is that it is completely unprocessed, unheated, unfiltered. I mean, I guess it's sort of filtered because they're separating it from the comb.
Yeah.
But I digress. I think that draws us to a good point for our first half, and then we'll come back after our break and talk a little bit more of the, not necessarily more complicated things, but just more multiple ingredient involved things. Oh, hey, Steve.
Oh, hey, Mike.
Well, what's wrong, buddy?
Well, I just got this new water bottle, but it just looks so plain.
Well, have I got the store for you. Introducing the Wild Edible World Podcast Merch Store.
Wowie, wow!
It's the merch store where you can get all of your favorite podcasts merch for all your decorating purposes.
How do I find that?
Go to wildedibleworldpod.shopify.com or go to any of our Instagram and media accounts and view the link in the bio.
Wowie, wow!
Don't worry, we're back.
You missed us. It's okay. We missed you too.
It's true. I personally want to start this half off by thanking our wonderful musician, Brett Westcott, for just like the couple really freaking cool tunes and a couple little variations.
We were just jamming so hard before this.
Yeah, we always just kind of like play the music in between, like we're like we're a professional studio or something where we get to hear our own music. But normally we don't. But yeah, thanks, Brett, for making some really awesome tunes. Thanks, Laura Feller, for making a really awesome logo that we're able to turn into keychains, stickers, and magnets, and yada, yada, yada. Maybe someday we'll actually get a pre-recorded gratitude thing to play at the end of every podcast. But for now, you get this strange, individual, and unique gratitude.
You lucky duck.
And thanks for everybody for listening to that.
You the best.
As well. And for listening to this show. We're all really grateful for you guys too, as we try to mention. Anyway, so I guess we'll start with fire cider.
Yeah, who's had it before? By a show of hands.
My hand went up.
Yeah, Michael's had it.
I've had it. I like it. I think it's great. It's a little too spicy heavy for me, but that's the point. It's called fire cider.
It's so spicy.
So it's supposed to be kind of I think of it like niacin, where it's kind of like it's getting your stuff, it's pushing stuff to the surface, you know, it's making you sweat, you know, it's squeezing your juices out. Okay. No.
So fire cider, just I guess a very basic explanation is a bunch of stuff that's real good for you.
Sure.
In a jar.
So typically like what? Onions, garlic, jalapeno.
Yeah.
I forget what else. Ginger. Oh, that's right. Yeah, good chunks of ginger. And then, but I think that's a pretty good solid frame. Apple cider vinegar is.
That's the main.
That's the main component.
Yeah.
So it's all this stuff soaking in the apple cider vinegar for about 3 months, I think, is the earliest you would want to consider it an actual fire cider. But I took a fire cider making class at the Wild Harvest Festival a few months ago, and even Linda Black Elk was just talking about, outside of that class, was talking about how she will sometimes have fire ciders that just sit on the shelf for a year. And if she's feeling a little sniffly or something, feels like she might have something coming on, she'll just kind of like reach into that jar and even pluck an onion out and just like chomp on it. Like she just leaves the vegetables in there the whole time. And they're basically just kind of slow pickling and fermenting a little bit in there. But basically it just kind of continues to seep and to kind of transfuse all those flavors and nutrients into the whole thing.
I like it.
Have you ever eaten any of the vegetables out of the jar?
I've not.
So I've got a couple.
So brave.
Yeah, I've got a couple of jars that we made for that class that are ready now, and I walk by that jar every time. It's like I kind of want to pluck out a little bit of ginger or something and munch on it.
Definitely should. That sounds awesome.
Nice little boost,
especially since it's ripe. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Ripe. It's a perfect season for it. So this is, just combining all those food is medicine philosophies, but also, you know, there are facts to why an onion is good for you.
For sure.
And why a jalapeno is good for you. You know, none of these things are bad. It's not candy. These are an interesting way of getting vegetables and nutrients and a little bit of sipping vinegar into your life. I love vinegar.
I love vinegar.
I know a lot of people.
For sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a hot-cold issue. You either love it or you hate it. Nobody's kind of like,
Yeah, vinegar.
It's too strong of a flavor to have an to it, right? It doesn't. You can't have that.
Even if you're not a nut that drinks like straight apple cider vinegar like us,
but you still like it.
There's an application for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Well, definitely. I mean, a lot of even vinegar, I think is a really healthy, a healthy habit to have in the wintertime. And there's lots of non-alcoholic. If you guys are participating, it is Dry January. If one is participating in Dry January, there's lots of fun opportunities to make different non-alcoholic cocktails, or what other people call shrubs.
Shrubs.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
Shrubs are basically just, a hyper simple shrub is seltzer water, honey, and vinegar. And you just mix them together. And basically it's a way of getting raw honey into your system, vinegar into your system, and the seltzer makes it really yummy and bubbly.
It sounds excellent.
It's awesome. I had one today. I drink one like every other day.
Strawberries. Like Monty Python.
Shrubberies, yes. Yeah. Actually, that is one of the jokes. Yeah, I have a pin that says, show me your shrubberies or your shrubs or something like that. But yeah, that's
awesome. No,
yeah.
I've never tried that. That sounds great.
But that was just like a basic framework of what a shrub is. There's a variety of different like combos and other things you can add into it. So like non-alcoholic bitters, if you really want to make like an actual cocktail. I think vinegar is still a really valuable component to that, but shrubs and fire cider, are kind of not necessarily parallels, but I think they both have a lot to do with vinegar, and vinegar is also good in your soups. So that bone stock we were talking about earlier,
almost necessary. Vinegar helps break down the cartilage and draw out the nutrients from the bones, and
my man,
vinegar.
Yeah. Salt, fat, acid, heat.
That's right.
Right? And vinegar is that acid that we're kind of missing. Some people throw in lemons. That's also applicable.
That's cool.
I think lemons would probably also go into your fire cider, maybe.
Yeah.
Oranges, citrus, some type of citrus goes into a fire cider as well.
Yeah, it needs it a little bit. It needs that. Exactly. It needs that brightness.
A little bit of brightness. Yeah. Exactly what I was going to say.
And then while you were talking about like fire cider and all those delicious things, thought popped into my head, ginger beer, ginger bugs. So making a ginger bug, so like a little colony of bacteria, ginger dudes, making your own soda from that can be a very fun and healthful thing to do right now, as far as like, fun ways to stay healthy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, and I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I'm going to throw back, I think, to the first half when we were talking about honey. And you can actually, I think turmeric is a pretty well-known medicinal spice. So, okay, so we talked about this just briefly before we started recording. And I think a valuable segment that we could talk about right now is spices. Almost just like, and herbs, just regular things that a lot of people have in our cabinet. So I was just about to talk about fermenting turmeric in honey. And so that's an interesting way of getting both of those medicinal benefits. But you mentioned
oregano
and rosemary tinctures. So tincturing is a really good way to get is a remedy parallel preventative treatment, but also you used it actively for a gut issue. Right?
Yeah. If oregano in particular is very good at helping control like a gut issue, as far as like over bloom of certain types of gut bacteria. Oregano oil and oregano tinctures can be a great way to treat those. And I mean, a little more research should be done, of course, depending on your specific situation. But just these natural herb oils and just the polyphenols and all the goofy little things that are inside of them are just so good for you.
Yeah, that's part of what makes them so delicious. I think there's medicine doesn't have to taste bad. And a lot of the times there's a lot of those parallels drawn of like, oh, dandelions, they're really bitter because that's, it's that healthy for you. But there's a wrong misinterpretation of bitter being a bad flavor. And that, I think a lot of people, especially foragers that I personally know, a lot of us are growing to enjoy bitter flavors more, the more we've kind of like just lived with them, those flavors, and it just being a part of some of these processes and some of these more adventurous ingredients. But we start to realize, like, sometimes I kind of crave bitterness sometimes.
Absolutely.
Especially like pine or spruce tip season. Like, I'm already ready for it right now. I pickled spruce tips because I want that like bitter, piney spruceness. But yeah, using the rosemary oil tincture. I haven't used tinctures very much, especially not herbal tinctures. I have used like a reishi tincture, but it's just kind of like I don't know. It was just experimental, and I wasn't dropping it underneath my tongue or anything. I was just adding a squirt into my coffee every day because I've read about how good it is for your like just like immune defense. I'm interested in lion's mane tinctures for like memory health and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have some coffee I'll bring you. I have some coffee that is infused. It's by Four Sigmatic. So I have lion's mane, reishi, and I think I might even have cordyceps. And I have they make a line of coffee, like golden lattes, like matcha tea, and I just have a ton because I had on auto order and I forgot to turn it off. But segueing from your bitter, your talk about bitter things, I think that's like a good indicator that maybe like our current Western diet is maybe a little bit too sweet.
Well, it's lacking.
Yeah.
It's severely lacking, I think. It doesn't take a food scientist to know that the typical American diet is missing a lot.
And everything has just so much added sugar.
And sugar.
And
Too
so
much sugar.
when you're used to living in that sugary swamp,
yeah.
the bitter things taste a little more bitter.
They
so
taste
when you
worse, yeah.
Yeah, so when you start to acclimate your palate to the things that we've been eating and the things that we like to eat, it's you start to like it for sure. I love
and you
bitter.
start to realize like, oh, it's not that bitter. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's really not that bad. And that sweet stuff is like, I mean, I've never really been able to eat that much cheesecake, but I can't finish a slice of cheesecake. It makes me, I start to get like nauseous.
I like it with berries.
It's got to have berries on it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you get that batter that still is kind of like balancing it with these like deeper tones. You know, it's not all sugar, and there's more natural sugars in there. So it's a little bit more palatable.
When I make cheesecake, I make it less sweet, and I put more like lemon peel and stuff like that in it. Things that
I would love to try your cheesecake.
I'll make
sometime.
a cheesecake. I make a hell of a cheesecake. Sweet stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Back to tinctures. Maybe let's talk a little bit. A basic primer on how to tincture something, right?
Sure.
So it's, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never made one. Have you ever made one?
I've never made one.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure you take a really high proof alcohol. So basically the highest proof alcohol vodka you can find,
Spiritus.
or Espiritus and Everclear, which is going to have like, the highest proofs you can
White
find.
Lightning you may or may not have made in your own basement.
Yeah. Or moonshine. Maybe not moonshine. I bet moonshine would work fine.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically you just steep these ingredients, whatever medicinal qualities you want to extract. You steep them for a designated period of time.
Long time, I think.
Yeah. I think it changes depending on the ingredient and how permeable they are. But there's also dual extraction. So the reishi supplement that I was taking specifically was dual extraction because there's some medicinal compounds that are water soluble, and then there are some that are alcohol soluble. And some of the more important, or quote unquote important stuff, is alcohol soluble, which is why tinctures have been used for as long as we've had high proof alcohols. But I think a well-rounded experience is really important too, having the water soluble stuff too. But can't necessarily do that with your homemade. I suppose a rosemary, half and half tincture of like alcohol and water. Basically, just making a rosemary tea and then mixing it with the tincture you made.
And you just said the magic word, tea. That's our next segue here. When we talked about soups, we talked about delicious honey things, fermented beverages, fire ciders, herbal teas, and herbal like things like the rose hips that you've been going crazy with. Great tea item. There's a ton of flowers and like conifer needles and things that make just a delicious tea. I'm actually super excited to try those spruce tips in like a wild soda. I think you talked about that maybe in a past episode or something. I don't know
Absolutely.
if it was spruce specific.
Well, there's also pine needle soda that's going around
soda
right now. It's very hot.
Yeah.
To make pine needle soda.
Pine needle soda is so hot right
Thanks,
now.
Alexis Nelson.
Hansel.
But yeah, herbal teas. I mean, it's also a great opportunity to kind of clear out your cabinet. I know I collect all sorts of herbal flowers and leaves all throughout the year, so it's a great time to use up. I mean, and a lot of these things are kind of thought. I mean, I've thought of them mostly as kind of savory herbs, but really they're just herbs. They're not just for food. You can make a tea with them too, and those flavors still, when playing with other ingredients like rose hips or kind of like a dehydrated orange that you have, or some of these other things like, I don't know, I'm just talking about stuff that's in my pantry right now.
Oh, for sure. No, that's
or
perfect.
elderberries, dried elderberries even. So if you have an overabundance and you made enough syrup, you made enough gummy bears or whatever, you can then even go further and dehydrate the berries and use those in tea. And now your tea has some nice elderberry immunodefense and beautiful color. So herbal teas are really great. It's kind of hard to be specific on what they provide because it really depends on what you put in them.
Well, I think just looking at it very like from a higher elevation, in the winter, I find that I crave like cruciferous vegetables, so like greens and broccoli and stuff like that. And I almost wonder if it's like the lack of vitamin D that I'm getting, if that those teas and those leafy greens and stuff like that is like an infusion of that.
Yeah.
So just looking at it from a super basic standpoint, like your body isn't getting as much sunshine, so let's get it some, sunshine made whole, made physical.
Exactly. Yeah, there's always that phrase, or there's the tip that you can dry mushrooms in sunlight, and that infuses the mushrooms with vitamin D. But plants that just grow out there, I believe, absorb certain amounts of vitamin D, and when we are really lacking it, those little bits do matter.
And that's where they're getting their energy from. I mean, it's just an energy.
There's no way
cycle.
It's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, I think we should land the remedy plane, unless there's anything else about herbal teas.
No, I think that's safe.
I guess I would like to draw the generalization that you should try to keep everything below boiling.
Yes.
You boil your water
Agreed.
first, let it cool for a couple minutes, and then steep your ingredients. That's especially important for any ingredients that contain vitamin C.
Yeah.
There will still be degradation and loss of vitamin C, but it will be much less.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. I think you nailed it there. And, you can make tea in less hot water. Just steep it for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make tea in cold water. Even,
Yeah, for sure.
I make coffee in cold water.
Yeah.
So it's all if the water gets in there. It's nature's greatest solvent, most abundant solvent, I guess I should say. They taught us in science class that it was the universal solvent. I'm not sure that entirely holds true, but it will permeate anything. So you could do even like sun brewed tea, right? With herbal tea and like sit it on your windowsill.
Idea. Yeah, sit it on your windowsill. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We'll talk about it maybe in 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
We'll brew some, get some started tonight. We'll each bring in our little sun iced tea.
I'll get mine started tomorrow.
I'm going to do
Don't hold me to that. Don't hold me to that.
All right. Sounds good.
But yeah.
Well, it's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. And we hope you guys learned a little bit of something and are reminded of that bag of elderberries that you got in the back of your freezer that you could turn into something that can really help you and your family right now.
And let's get a little bit more movement on Instagram. Tag us in your stuff. We want to see if
we want to see what you're
doing
making.
anything with this stuff, with this info.
If you've ever gotten any of our merch, if we've mailed you any stuff, show it off. Let me see where you put your pins. If you bought a pin from us, where have you put it? That's what I want to see. Tag us on Instagram. Show us where you put your pins. Pin us. Pin ups. Well, all right. That's the next thing.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Stephen Michael pin ups. All right. Bye.
Bye.